So in just a few hours, President Cyril Ramaphosa will be welcomed by the British royal family with King Charles III present. This is on South Africa's first state visit to that country in 12 years. The visit is meant to strengthen relations between Pretoria and London, worth over £6 billion in foreign direct investment since 1994. The UK and South Africa have also recently issued a joint statement on progress made towards a just energy transition. Newzroom Africa's Govan Whittles is live for us in London this lunchtime. Govan, what is the feeling among people there about this visit? Do they care?
Yeah, they certainly do. We've spoken to a number of them on the streets of London since arriving, and there is some expectation that this visit would yield concrete plans or at least commitments by the business sector in the United Kingdom, as well as some progress in the implementation of a just energy transition in South Africa. You mentioned some of the progress that was issued in that joint statement. One of the clauses being the dropping of the localization requirement for products used in the just energy transitions, renewable products, from 70% to 30%. That drop in the localization target announced by the Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, Ibrahim Patel, who's joined the President here in London for this state visit. There is a big focus on trade, and the President, his entourage, have indicated that this trip is underpinned by trying to find solutions to South Africa's economic challenges, specifically trying to create more jobs and facilitate a skills transfer. The Minister of Higher Education, Blade Nzimande, also part of the delegation, and is expected to sign a memorandum of understanding with his counterpart on Thursday. But let's focus on where we are right now. We're at the Royal Horse Guard Parade. This is where the King of the UK, King Charles III, will receive President Cyril Ramaphosa in about an hour's time. We'll show you some footage there. That's the building for international trade, and that's essentially just one of the government buildings. And we can't show you much of the Royal Horse Guard parade ground at the moment because of the position, but once we do, we'll be able to give you some live footage of that. Just some information about what's expected. Over 1,000 soldiers and more than 230 horses will join His Majesty the King and Her Majesty the Queen Consort for that ceremonial welcome of President Cyril Ramaphosa. And this is the Royal Pavilion on Horse Guards Parade, and there'll also be an introduction to a number of officials that are part of the British Army by the King, and what you're looking at in picture right now is the stand where a number of South African dignitaries are already waiting. The President only expected in an hour, but most of the South African dignitaries already there. You'll see the head of infrastructure development in the cabinet, Dr. Ramaphosa, who's sitting in the front row there. In the front of the frame would be the President's spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, and then a number of members of the House of Lords of the British Parliament who have also been engaging with the President and his delegation in the run-up to his arrival and meeting the King. They've put a number of issues on the table, areas of cooperation, but what we're here for this morning is really the pomp and ceremony. This is the same ceremony that took place when former President Nelson Mandela visited the late Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, and similar to that, President Cyril Ramaphosa will arrive here by a motor vehicle, but he'll leave in a royal horse carriage. Then they'll make their way up the road to Buckingham Palace, and I'll step out a shot so you can see exactly how that road is lined with flags from the different African countries. You'd see in frame as well a few of the horses already making their way to this area. That ceremony is expected to start at about 11:45 London time, so that would be 1:45 in South Africa. We'll venture to bring you some of those pictures live here from London, and you can't see Buckingham Palace just yet, but a little bit later we'll be able to bring you visuals of the horse carriages with the King Charles III and the Queen Consort, as well as the South African President, making their way there for the official reception. Thereafter, the President will be laying a wreath at the memorial for the unknown soldier. That'll be at Westminster Abbey. And Westminster Abbey is a place where monks have been holding their pilgrimage for over 1,000 years. It's a place where daily pilgrimage takes place, hugely significant in British society, and our President will lay a wreath there. Later on, we'll get to the substantive issues. He's expected to deliver an address at Westminster Palace to a joint sitting of the House. And in that address, we're expecting our President to not only focus on the skills transfer, which is part of the priorities, but also South Africa's cooperation with Britain in renewable energy and achieving net zero carbon emission status through that just energy transition. And then, of course, we're expecting him to touch on a number of issues on tourism, as well as partnerships in sufficiently preparing South Africa against another pandemic. We'll leave you with some more pictures from the Royal Horse Guard Parade here in London. And it looks like some of the bands are warming up. Not too sure if you can hear them just yet, but in about 45 minutes, this will be a hive of activity, as they say, Timmy.
Govan, Whittles, let's leave it there with you for now. Govan Whittles is in London for us. President Cyril Ramaphosa is on a state visit there at the invitation of King Charles III in a different UK, shall we say, because there's a new monarch in the form of King Charles III, also a new Prime Minister in the form of Rishi Sunak. So when the President does indeed speak at Westminster and addresses the politicians in the UK, will hopefully be able to bring you that address live here on Newzroom Afrika.